Episode 3 of the new Percy Jackson show just came out, so let's talk about it. As I did for the first 2 episodes, I'm going to give my honest thoughts, review it, and rate it out of 10. As we go through, I'll also point out Easter eggs, hidden details, and notable moments, and give a full breakdown of this new episode. Now, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen episode 3 and also episodes 1 and 2, you have been warned. If you like this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm, meaning I can make more fun videos like this one. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now that I've said that, let's get the video started. The first shot is in the attic of the big house where the Oracle lives. Just as the book described this place, it's filled with Greek hero junk, like this pot that depicts a Greek hero, this statue of a hero shooting a bow and arrow, meaning they're probably a son of Apollo, some body armor as well as a helmet, both of which look like what they wore for Capture the Flag in the last episode. You can also see what I think is the big house in miniature form, which is definitely interesting. They also show what looks like a claw in a jar, which is a great callback to the book where Percy said he saw glass jars filled with pickled things, severed hairy claws, huge yellow eyes, various other parts of monsters. We also see a mounted head on the wall, which is another thing taken right from the book, as the book described it as a dusty mounted trophy on the wall that looked like a giant snake's head but with horns. The book then goes on to tell us that this is the head of a hydra and was taken from Woodstock in 1969. You can also see a bunch of cobwebs, which was another detail the book used to describe this attic. Sitting right in front of Percy is the Minotaur horn that he ripped off in episode 1, which was a detail that wasn't actually in the book. Percy actually had it with him the whole time and left it in his cabin before leaving for his quest. You can also see a bunch of scrolls next to the Oracle, which I assume must be other prophecies that she's foretold. The Oracle looks amazing and is so freaking terrifying, just like the description from the book was, and she even has the beaded necklaces that the book mentioned, as well as the tie-dyed sundress. Interestingly though, she has blonde hair rather than black hair like in the book. I'm also loving the fact that Percy was the first one to speak, just introducing himself to the Oracle and calling her a Halloween decoration.
Hi, I'm Percy. I was told a quest isn't a quest until you've said so, which is weird considering you're a Halloween decoration.
Even though Percy was not the first to speak in the book, the Oracle was, this is just such a Percy thing to say and do, and I'm here for it. The green smoke that comes out of the Oracle was magnificent as well, even depicting Gabe who foretells the prophecy just like in the novel. Once again, just like in the first episode, Gabe is all alone rather than being with his friends, which is what was described to be seen in the green smoke. And honestly, I far prefer this, because he should be a loser with no friends the way he acts. One thing I saw a lot of people saying in the comment section of my last video was that Gabe was too likable. I sort of agree with this, but I also think that this Gabe is absolutely hilarious and adds a lot of comic relief. So personally, I'm okay with it. Also, going back to the Oracle, it has a very interesting backstory. I'm not going to say too much for fear of spoiling future seasons, but the Oracle relates to a curse that was given to her by Hades, as well as the D'Angelo kids, Nico and Bianca, both of whom were sort of mentioned in the first episode as Sally Jackson mentioned a sandwich shop with their name.
I'm gonna stop at D'Angelo's.
Percy choosing Annabeth before Chiron even finishes what he says, I'm sure made Percabeth fans so happy.
And ensure that we succeed.
Annabeth.
One waits to at least hear a name or two before choosing.
However, based on what we find out at the end of the episode, it wasn't really a romantic thing, it was actually more of a bad thing.
I chose her because I couldn't imagine we'd ever be friends.
What?
We see Grover picking up Pegasus poop, his punishment for telling Percy the truth about his mother at the end of the last episode, and he speaks to a black Pegasus specifically, which I'm assuming is Blackjack, the Pegasus that Percy would team up with later on, and who a second grade Percy saw in the opening of episode 1. However, this gets interesting to think about because Blackjack was a wild Pegasus, so seeing him here in the stables is a bit odd, and we did see him in the background of the last episode as well. But it wouldn't be the first time this series changed something rather big, but most of these changes I actually really like, and this is one of them that I'm here for. We hear the rest of the prophecy that Percy was worried about a friend betraying him.
You shall be betrayed by the one who calls you friend.
Hence why Percy chose Grover, the person he trusted most.
I trust you.
This is a big step up because it shows that Percy now forgave Grover for betraying him in episode 1. A moment and change that I still despise. I think it was very out of character for Grover to betray Percy like that. But I've already talked about that enough, so let's move on. We see them packing an apple and some scrap metal for snacks, which is a detail taken right from the book. We get a look at golden drachmas, the currency used by ancient Greeks and today in the mythological world. Each one depicts something relating to a god in Greek mythology, and on the other side is the Empire State Building, but they didn't show that here. I like the fact that Luke gave Percy the shoes without Annabeth and Grover there, unlike in the book. I just think this adds a lot more contrast between Percy and Luke that I find pretty fascinating. And this becomes even more interesting when Percy mentions that he almost chose Luke for the quest, which I don't think he ever said to Luke in the novel, but please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot more detail on the relationship of these two and the paths that they choose, much like the show extended Sally Jackson's role. Also, the CGI for the way the wings come out of the laces is magnificent. Like, wow, that looks so freaking good. I was very excited to see the backstory of Thalia being highlighted here. Seeing Annabeth say goodbye to her tree form and seeing Grover bow his head when it's mentioned is absolutely perfect, as she was Annabeth's hero and Grover's failure when he failed to save her. Percy's line about her meeting a pinecone's fate,
And she met a hero's fate. She met a pinecone's fate.
was absolutely savage and definitely made me chuckle a bit. Also, Percy talking about who's in charge was such a Percy thing to say as well.
Does she think she's in charge?
Who do you think would be in charge?
I guess I assumed we'd do show of hands or something.
I have to say that the dialogue for Percy so far in the show has been spot on, and I think a lot of that credit has to go to Walker Scobell's delivery of the lines.
I'm completely comfortable with that.
There's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but you can see the Empire State Building in the reflection of the car window, which foreshadows where the entrance to Mount Olympus is, and as they show this, Grover actually mentions Olympus.
Change the balance of power on Olympus.
We also get a mention of Percy being a forbidden child,
You're a forbidden child. Zeus might decide to take a shot at you himself.
which they said in the last episode as well.
As a forbidden child of the sea god.
However, they never really explained this the way that the book did, and honestly, I think it's a pretty important thing to know. We find out that the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, all three of whom are brothers, had a pact dubbed the Pact of the Big Three, vowing that the three of them were never to have kids again because they were just too powerful. Poseidon of course broke this when having Percy, hence why Percy is a forbidden child. Grover's singing was super random, but I actually really loved it.
When the team's getting grumpy, the trick to getting through it is singing this
Dude,
song.
what are you doing?
This is, I think, a reference to his reed pipes that can calm living things, just a different way of showing it. A guy is reading a magazine called The Scariest Places, while Grover explains monsters, which adds up pretty well. We also see Mrs. Dodds, or the Fury Electo, reading a New Jersey newspaper, telling us that we're now in New Jersey, not New York. I actually really like the added element of Electo being the one that went after Annabeth, Thalia, and Luke when Thalia sacrificed herself all those years ago.
You're not the frightened little girl I came for all those years ago.
There's a really quick shot here that showed the mist for mortals, as we see what this mortal man sees versus what the demigods see. We also get our first look at Annabeth's knife as she throws it at the Fury, and this knife is super important for the end of the series, but I'll leave it at that. Also, instead of having Electo and her two sisters there was just her and one other Fury, that being the one that Annabeth killed, which is an interesting change and might be solely due to budget purposes, because making CGI like this can get pretty expensive. Grover mentioning a satyr path
This turns into a satyr path.
What's a satyr path?
It's a road through the wilderness.
is something that was never actually mentioned in the books, but it does align with the many things we know about satyrs in the series. I wouldn't expect anything less though, seeing that Rick Riordan is one of the main writers for this series, and obviously he knows more about satyr lore in the Percy Jackson series more than anybody else. Unlike in the book, the show does not have the bus they're on blow up, which again might have been a choice decided because of budget. However, this does take away the added element of Percy being a fugitive. We get a mention of Grover's Uncle Ferdinand,
Because it's actually the one my Uncle Ferdinand took when he set out on his own quest.
who disappeared when looking for Pan, the god of the wilderness, the same honor Grover wants to do, get his searcher's license so he can go find Pan as well. Later in the episode, we see Grover find his missing uncle, just like in the novel. I love the set for Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium, as it has a very 1950s look, which adds up to the book's description of this area being sort of frozen in time. This sequence was shortened quite a bit, as who Medusa is revealed right away, unlike in the book.
I'm Medusa.
Honestly though, I think this change was handled very well, especially with Alecto being part of this sequence, which was not the case in the book. She's another character that's clearly getting an extended role, and honestly, I'm here for it. Jessica Parker Kennedy as Medusa was magnificent, especially when getting emotional while telling her story.
Me.
They made her more of a victim of bullying rather than a monster who wants revenge on Athena and her daughter like in the book.
I don't like bullies. The gift the gods gave me is that I cannot be bullied anymore.
I like this bullying rewrite because bullying is obviously a theme throughout every single section of every single Rick Riordan series, so it adds up pretty well. You can see milkshakes and burgers, which are the two things that originally drew the trio in the book, the promise of that food and drink. Medusa says that Percy will be an easy mark for Annabeth when she betrays him,
And you will be an easy mark for her when the time comes.
This mention of an easy mark when referring to a daughter of Athena might be a reference to the title of the third book in the sequel series, The Mark of Athena. It's interesting that the fight sequence takes place in the basement of Medusa's shop rather than outside of it, but this set looks incredible with all of the statues, so I'm not complaining. The show's version of Medusa looks so much better than the movie's version of Medusa, especially from a CGI standpoint. It does not look fake at all and actually looks pretty damn good. Also, the way they kill Medusa differs greatly from the book where Percy used a reflection. Here, however, Annabeth puts her invisibility cap on her and Percy slices her head off while she's in that state. It's a cool and refreshing change, especially after the movie already showed the reflection kill. The show's version of this also depicts how smart and quick-witted Annabeth is, just like her mother Athena, the god of war. The awkward moment between Percy and Annabeth opening the door is actually really endearing.
My hands are kind of full.
Of course.
You can tell that they're trying to make sure they build their relationship up slowly, a lot like the Harry Potter films did with Ron and Hermione. Percy of course turns Alecto to stone and she smashes, clearly being dead. This makes me wonder how and if she'll come back later on, because she does come back later in this book and in other books in the series as well, like in the first novel of the sequel series. I've gotta say, the scene with Grover's uncle really made me change my mind about Grover in this series. The acting here was magnificent, both when talking about his uncle and confronting Percy and Annabeth. Just as I had hoped, Grover is getting better after I hated him in the first 2 episodes, which makes me very relieved and very happy. I also love how the trio came together here, Annabeth saying that she didn't give Percy up to Alecto, and Percy saying that he didn't give the two of them up to Medusa. It's a great moment that really brings them together, and a moment that has great acting all around.
As long as the three of us are together, none of us are gonna be alone.
We see the box for Hermes Express, which is the mail for all of the gods, and Hermes is the father of Luke, who will play a much larger role as we move forward in the series. And speaking of Hermes, we actually see him being played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I did not expect this, nor did I expect getting to see Percy send the head of Medusa to the gods, but I'm very pleasantly surprised that we did. It was also really cool to see how the Olympus Empire State Building entrance works as the 600th floor button appears, and then the light shines in when the doors open to Olympus.
You guys are not gonna believe this.
So my overall thoughts of the episode and my rating out of 10. I'm giving this episode an 8.5 out of 10 because it is definitely the best one so far. The acting was leveled up a ton, especially for Grover. This episode had so many quick lines that I just absolutely love and really show the characters from the books. I love most of the changes they made, like Alecto having a larger role in the story, being the monster that led to Thalia's sacrifice, as well as Medusa being more of a victimized character rather than a monster. There were so many small hidden details and Easter eggs to point out, which is so fun when you're a Percy Jackson fan watching this show. The CGI looked incredible, both with Medusa and the Furies. That was one thing I was really worried about with this show, as Disney Plus was stretched very thin, but the CGI artist came to bat and absolutely nailed it. But the thing that I liked most about this episode was the dynamic of the trio. They really elevated what their relationship was like at this point in the book, giving us much more detail on why Percy chose Annabeth so fast, that being simply because he knew that she would betray him, just as the prophecy said. And I also really liked Grover trying to keep the group together and balance the two out. This is especially true with the focus on how he was both of their protectors at one point.
He's my protector. It's his job.
He was my protector first.
I also love the dynamic of Percy and Annabeth both being offered a chance to get what they wanted by betraying the other, and both instead choosing to kill the monster, Annabeth throwing her knife to kill the Fury, and Percy cutting Medusa's head off.
Alecto offered to help our quest if I gave you up to her.
What did you say?
I killed her sister.
Medusa offered to help me save my mom if I turned to the two of you.
What'd you say?
I cut off her head.
This was an all-around great episode and definitely the best one so far, and that's something I did not expect. I went into this episode expecting it to regress, so seeing it actually get better made me very happy. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the episode though. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? How does it compare to the first 2 episodes? Comment below, I'm excited to read your thoughts. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on because I will be covering the show in depth every single week. So if you do that, you won't miss any of the episodes. That's all I have for you guys this week though, so I will see you next week for episode 4. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes movie flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great movie flame videos on the way.